Everyone, Jangro here. About 2.5 years ago, I made a detailed video on automating inscribers in Applied Energistics 2. It turned out to be pretty popular. Since then, a lot has changed with Applied Energistics 2, making the process a bit more straightforward. So I thought this would be a perfect time for an update. My goal today is to break down the entire process of automating inscribers so that by the end, you won't just know how to set it up, you'll fully understand how it all works. So here I am in my survival world, and it's time to automate these inscribers. Stick around for a full explanation how to set it up. Before we get into AE2, please give me a few seconds to thank our sponsor, Apex Hosting. If you've ever tried hosting a Minecraft server at home, you know the headaches, lag, performance issues, and port forwarding. With Apex Hosting, all of that is a thing of the past. They offer one-click mod pack installations, including many mod packs with AE2, and 24/7 support, so you can spend more time in your server automating all the things than on your server working on troubleshooting and updates. If you want to support the channel and get your server up and running on your favorite mod pack in less than 5 minutes, use my link, jangor.com/apex. Thank you for your support. Okay, since you're here, you probably understand what the inscriber is all about, but just in case, these processors that we need to make are core to Applied Energistics 2. Logic processor, calculation processor, and engineering processor. And to do this manually, which I have been doing all along, we put a press in here with the ingredient that it requires. Logic is gold, and we just ended up with a printed logic circuit. And then we need to take these printed circuits, combine it with a printed silicon circuit and some redstone, and we get the final logic circuit. Now, that's pretty tedious to do that manually. So what we're going to do is go right down here into this room where I've been expanding my Applied Energistics operations into, and we're going to build a fully automated inscriber setup right here. And here in this chest is everything we need. We have our 4 types of presses, a pattern provider, 5 inscribers, an ME interface, the flat version, not the block version, 2 export buses, 1 import bus, and 6 storage buses, a couple quartz fiber, and some cable and smart cable. And I've got some test ingredients here. Let's grab all of this stuff. And we need to connect the pattern provider to the main network, which this cable goes up through the ceiling to my ME network. And we just connect it with some Fluix glass cable. On this side of the pattern provider, we put an ME interface. And again, this needs to be the flat version. The flat version isolates the network, doesn't pass power through, only operates through its face instead of all 6 sides. It's much cleaner to work with. Now we need to put our 5 inscribers down like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is where things are much simpler than they were back in version 1.19 of Minecraft. We had to rotate inscribers to make them input and output out the right sides. Things have been much simplified. So we can import and export out just about any side of the inscribers, which makes this setup much easier. So on the backs of all of these inscribers go these storage buses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They all get one. We'll set up just one at first, namely the logic press, which we'll put in this one, the logic press. In this one, we'll put the calculation press. And in this one, we'll put the engineering press. And down here is the silicon press. And this one right here is where the final processor assembly is going to happen. So now we need to set up all the filters and things on these and connect them all together. Let's grab some smart cable just so we can see how many channels we're using here. Now everything goes into the network through this interface. So we just need a Fluix cable right here. And we need to power the whole thing. And it's critical that we have this separated with quartz fiber, because we do not want this network here to be connected to our main network. And now everything's powered. We have 8 channels. We're going to get a couple more used up before we're all finished. This one right here has got the logic press in it. That means we need to filter this storage bus on gold. We need it to be filtered on insertion only, because when this creates its logic, this printed logic circuit, we need it to get pulled out, back out into the network through that storage bus. So it's gold going in, anything going out, but that only makes the logic printed circuit. Now, when that logic circuit comes back out of the network, it needs to go someplace, and it's going to come into this inscriber right here. It's going to go right here with an export bus. There's the 7th item in our 8-channel subnetwork here. Now this here, we need to configure this with the logic printed circuit. We'll come back and do the other 2. We'll just do the logic one first to make this simple. Okay, so now when we can manually put something into this interface. It gets pulled out and stored here thanks to that storage bus filtered for gold. That gets pressed, and that should have ended up right in here thanks to this export bus set with a printed logic circuit. Perfect. Now we need the redstone to go in there. That's easy. We just configure this one for redstone. And this needs to be filtered on insertion only because the final product is going to come back out of this storage bus and into that pattern provider. So now if we put redstone in here, that went into this inscriber. So now we just need the silicon to get pushed into this one right here. We'll filter that on insertion only just for consistency, even though it's not strictly necessary on this one. And now we need a storage bus right here, import bus on this one right here. And I'm going to use a lime cable on this one. Now you see how this broke the whole network because everything connected together. So we need to isolate this with quartz fiber. So this is a little baby 2-channel network represented by this little green cable right here, isolated from the rest, but powered thanks to this quartz cable. Now this import bus is going to pull the finished printed silicon circuit thanks to this storage bus, which is going to be configured to pull out a printed silicon. So now we can test this one by putting silicon in here. That gets pulled into here, into this inscriber. It's getting turned into printed silicon. And now, thanks to this import bus pulling it into the network, because the storage bus is here configured with the printed silicon, it is now in here. And all three of these things are crafting into a logic processor. Now, this has nowhere to go yet. This is the final step. The storage bus is ready to make it available to the network because it is configured for insertion only, but it needs to go back out into this pattern provider with a final export bus configured for the logic processor. Now that is going to get pulled out of there. If we look closely, we need to connect it. Now it's going to get pulled out of there because it has a place to go. And it went back into our network to complete the automated process. So you can see here, we're using 8 channels on this subnetwork. And there's a sub-subnetwork with 2 channels. That's a total of 10, which is why we can't have everything connected together. This quartz fiber and pattern provider keep things isolated from the main network. So let's go upstairs and set up our pattern providers. Okay, so we want to make a logic processor, but we don't want it to send printed silicon and printed logic circuit. We want it to send raw ingredients, which is gold. And now we make that pattern, and we do the same thing for the calculation processor, which is going to be Certus quartz, silicon. And finally, for the engineering processor, we're going to use diamond and silicon. So now we have those 3 processing patterns. We're going to put them into this pattern provider that's connected to an ME interface. We'll see that this is going to the right place when we go back downstairs. Those 3 things go in there. And now we can test this with a logic processor. Let's pull all these out so we can see them getting crafted. This logic processor will do 1, start, and it pulled the gold into here, silicon into here, redstone in here, waiting for the final stage. These are going to finish and get moved into here. We can speed this up by putting acceleration cards in here. When that's finished, the logic processor got pulled back into the network thanks to that export bus right here and completed it. Now we need to finish this off by putting these 3 types of processors on this export bus. And this right here needs the printed versions. And now everything should work as long as we have the correct. So this is an engineering press. This one needs diamond. And this one is a calculation press, therefore it needs Certus quartz right here. So now we can test this with the other two types of circuits. So the Certus quartz went into this one, redstone in there, silicon in here. They finish and end up. What did I do wrong? This one is not set up. So here's what can go wrong. If you don't have this filtered on insertion only, I'm glad that happened, because that is probably the most common misconfiguration. All of these are now filtered on insertion only. So there we go. Now it finished. And now we'll do the engineering processor. Diamond over here. Silicon over here. Redstone waiting. Both moved in here. There it goes, back into our network. So just to recap, thanks to the pattern provider, the raw ingredients get pulled into here. The interface makes them available to the network. Thanks to these storage buses that are all filtered on the right things, they go into their appropriate inscriber. All the parts then filter over to this final inscriber, thanks to this subnetwork for the silicon, this export bus to get these top 3 items out into the final stage. And this export bus, configured for the 3 processors, pulls everything back into the pattern provider, sends it back into the network to complete crafting. Easy, right? Way easier than this used to be. My goal here was to help you understand the process entirely so you can build this yourself without just following along. I hope I succeeded. If you have any questions, please ask in the comments or join my Discord, discord.gg/Jangro. I'll link to that in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. I appreciate you.